Introducing the Hasselblad X2D 100C.
Alright, so the X2D is finally here, and I am both excited and kind of annoyed at the same time. And while I don't have the camera in my possession, I will put a statement out there that's rather bold. I would say I've used the Hasselblad X System than more than any other professional photographer out there. That's right, I said it, or at least more than just about anyone. I've been using it for 6 years. I've been traveling around the world using it for my commercial photography business, photographing luxury hotels. I've had personal and travel photography that I've shot with that camera published in National Geographic. I've also had it featured on the Hasselblad website. And so while I don't have it in my possession like a lot of the YouTube reviewers who used it for about a day and spent more time probably editing their video than they did use it, I'm just giving them crap. They actually do have good value going through the specs and their experience using it, but I offer you a unique perspective as someone that's used that system extensively and then recently switched out of that system and sold my X1D in favor of a Sony ecosystem for my business. So I'll talk a little bit about why I made that change, how I felt about the X system through the years, what I loved, what I hated, and I'll end with telling you who I think this brand new X2D is for and who it's not for, and I'll let you know if I'm gonna make the switch back to the X system. So stay tuned to find out, and let's talk photography. So I bought the X1D system like the second it was available. I read an article about it and I thought, like, this is kind of a cool camera system for what I'm doing. I've always wanted to venture into medium format, but it's always been too big and too bulky. I don't shoot in a studio, I'm out in the field, so I was never really interested. And then when I saw this camera, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I went to Singapore to buy it. I told my wife I was going for like business, and while I did set up a business meeting, my main purpose of going there was actually to buy the camera. She's upstairs, so I hope she doesn't hear this, hope she doesn't watch this episode. So I went to Singapore, I bought the camera. At the time, I could only get my hands on the 45mm, but the thoughts were, I'm gonna use this for my commercial photography business. Like I said before, we specialize in photographing luxury hotels and resorts around the world. Our big marquee client is Intercontinental Hotels, and at the time, we had just become an approved vendor for Intercontinental Hotels, so it felt like I could justify the purchase. In addition to that, I had some ideas to use it for some travel work that I wanted to use for print. So I've used it mainly for hotel work, which would be interiors, exteriors, but also a lot of lifestyle shots with models as well. I used it a little bit for my personal project capturing the beauty of Vietnam. I also took it as a backup camera to my Leica M10D for my first trip to document the last 2 northern white rhinos left in the world. And I got some cool shots with the camera as well. I know it's weird that it's like a backup to my Leica M10, but that's the only Leica I had at the time, and I needed a backup camera, and that's what I had handy. I did get some cool shots with it, but I mainly used the Leica for that shoot because it's perfect for my documentary and personal. So like I said, I've used the camera system extensively, and here are my thoughts on it. So first of all, it was amazing in the hand. As soon as you pick it up, as soon as you look at it, it's beautiful. It's like the perfect woman to date, right? She's beautiful on the outside. That big block of aluminum, every little curve on it was perfect. This is gonna get kind of gross. I don't mean it like that. But the inside, she was beautiful as well. I mean, the inside, the menu system, the navigation system, that was incredible. It's unlike anything I've ever used before, and still to this day, it's the best menu system that I've ever used. The feel in your hand and the look of the camera and just using it day in and day out, I would say it's gotta be top 2 for me. It rivals my M10D, and I like them both for different reasons, but they're both beautiful cameras. And then in addition to that, the files on that camera were absolutely delicious. I could push the shit out of them. I mean, it was just so amazing what you could get out of that. You could underexpose, not that you should, but if I did make a mistake and underexpose, boom, I could bring up the midtones, I could bring up the entire file. You could zoom in and see every single little detail. In addition to that, the color science that Hasselblad uses, like, incredible. The whole color profile straight out of the camera is perfect. Saves you a ton of time in post-production. So a lot to like about the camera system. Great files, great color, and a beautiful design inside and out. Now the bad. Let's talk about the bad. So what I didn't like about that camera, and in their defense, it was the first generation of an entire system, which everyone will tell you, like, don't buy into the first generation, always has problems, and it most certainly did. That camera was buggy as hell. I mean, it would just randomly shut down. Sometimes I'd be shooting, it's like, nah, I'm gonna shut down right now. Let's start up again, 5 minutes later, shut down again. And it usually could be fixed by the old turn it off and turn it back on again, or take the battery out and put it back in again, but still kind of sucked, still kind of stressful, gave me anxiety in shoots, because I'm like, well, Jesus, like if this camera craps out on me, I only had one at the time. Sure, I had a backup Canon system that I would use just in case something happened, but that was less than ideal. And I wanna trust my camera. As a professional, I mean anyone, you wanna trust your camera. And I needed to trust my camera. Like, I'd be out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in the Maldives doing a shoot for like 3 weeks one time, and it just started shutting off all the time. And that's scary to me because I can't, there's not just like a Hasselblad shop there. I can go in and get it fixed or rent another one. So that scared me. Again, I still used it for many years, and that was just one of the problems. The other problem was the autofocus system. It's just terrible. Like, I don't need autofocus for my commercial work, and I bought that camera to slow down a little bit because sometimes I need to slow down. You guys tell me my talking, I need to slow down, and I'm working on that. I'm trying. Am I doing well? Let me know in the comment section. And while I'm going off on a tangent here, pause for a second. If you don't mind, take a second to lightly press the like button. You don't have to smash it, just lightly press it. If you enjoy my ugly talking head with words coming out of it about photography, you might even consider subscribing. And if you really like me, you might even want to join my membership program with a ton of exclusive perks, like my weekly live stream for members only, my monthly photography contest for members only, my BTS, and my pre-releases of some of my videos. All that, you can check that out by just hitting the join button for $4.99 a month. All right, sorry, back to it. The focus system, yes, it was crap. It was like kind of unusable. I barely ever used it. I always went with the tap the screen, which actually did work well, focus, and then tap and zoom out again. And again, like I said, for most of my commercial work, not a problem. I do shoot models, and it was limiting when I wanted the models for when I'm doing resort shoots. Like sometimes they're, flying a kite, or sometimes they're running on the beach or playing in the water, and really hard to get anything out of that. That was a disadvantage, but not enough for me to give up the system. I used it for 6 years, happy with the files. Clients were happy with the files. My retoucher was impressed with the files, and it went pretty well for a long period of time. And then a few months ago, when business started to pick up again post-COVID, we started traveling all over the place. Business got back to not just normal, but busier than normal. So I got really busy again, which was great, and I feel very lucky about that. But I started to reconsider things and started to look at our gear because my business, the way it works, not only do we do commercial photography shoots, we do a ton of video as well. Often we might be shooting stills and video at the same exact time. I might be taking stills of the model doubling up and then also overseeing and helping direct a scene for the cinematographer. Sometimes we've got teams in different areas. We might have teams in different countries. One team over in Thailand shooting a video, and then we might have a team in Vietnam doing stills. So with all that in mind about my business, I needed a system that was going to be versatile, a system that was very compatible with each other, a system with a lot of hybrid options for stills and videos. So I did a lot of research, I looked into things, and I felt like Sony was the best move for me and the best move for my business. We're already using Sony for most of our video cameras, and we're happy with that. So we made a complete switch. I sold the Hasselblad X1D at a bargain price. I still actually have, to this day, I still have my XCD lenses. They've been very hard to sell here in Vietnam. So just to give you a quick layout of the kit that we switched to. So for our video A camera, we have a Sony FX3. For our stills A camera, we have a Sony A7R4. So it's a 60 megapixel full frame sensor. It's still more than enough. I'm still very happy shooting billboards with that camera, and it's not something I do all the time, but I feel comfortable shooting with that sensor. And then as a hybrid backup camera, as a B camera for both our stills and our video, which Sony has a lot of different options there, we went with a Sony A7 IV, and that covers us for a lot of different options. It can be a A camera on certain shoots, it can be a B camera to our A video camera and to our A still camera, so it's a very versatile setup. We'll probably also invest in a Sony A1, and then we also have an emergency backup Sony A7S II. And then for lenses, we have a variety of Sony and Sigma prime lenses across the board, and then we also have a couple zoom lenses to back us up for emergencies. In case, knock on wood, one of those prime lenses goes down, we're covered. So that system offered up, like I said, a lot of different functionality, a lot of different compatibility, and covers us for all sorts of hybrid shoots, which we do often, and also gave us a lot of different gear at a budget price. So that's not necessarily a knock on the Hasselblad system. I know that's not the market they're going after, but it's not a knock there, and we're a very rare case in how we work, so that's just kind of why I did it. I wanted to explain that so you understand. Overall, for just stills, I was very happy with that system for a long time. Yes, it was buggy, and probably the fact that it was buggy and the fact that I couldn't necessarily always trust it 100%, and it really just wasn't affordable to get like 2 Hasselblad bodies. I did look into the X1D Mark II. It just wasn't a big enough upgrade for me. Like, it came out, it had like minor feature updates. It kind of felt to me like it's what the first version should have been. They should have waited and released that one. So I waited for a long time for this X2D to come out, and I just couldn't wait any longer. And again, as my business grew, the system just wasn't practical for me, both budget-wise and versatility-wise. Like, I'd have to have 2 options for all the lenses and 2 bodies, and it just wouldn't have worked. So I've been using the Sony system now for several months, how I mentioned all those different types of scenarios, and I haven't had any problems whatsoever. I've been quite happy with the system. Yes, it's not as beautiful. Yes, if you really zoom in tight on those files, you can slightly see the difference, but offers me up a lot more creativity with the autofocus for certain situations with models and things like that. And the client hasn't really noticed, our retoucher barely noticed, and I didn't really even notice that much at all either. So I'm very happy with this switch. I'm very happy with that decision for my personal business. All right, so what about the X2D? Get to it. Talk about the features. Talk about who it's for. Talk about if you're gonna buy it or not. All right, I will. I'll get to it. I just wanted to give some context because again, I think I have a unique experience and I just want to give some background about how I've been using it. I would like to say about the X System, even the X1D Mark II, I would say it was always kind of like almost a professional camera. Like it wanted to be a professional camera. It had all the talent in the world to be a professional camera. It just wasn't there. I mean, I forgot to mention too that the camera started falling apart after heavy use. Like I definitely used the shit out of that camera. I used it a lot. I'm rolling around. I'm using it in situations that maybe like it said it's supposed to be used for, but not really. It's meant to kind of be like coddled. And I didn't coddle that camera. I mean, I used it hard. And the rubber started to fall apart. It still worked. The inside still worked, but the whole camera, the rubber on the lenses and the rubber on the camera really started to come apart after a couple years. Now we've got the X2D. Now we've got a professional camera. Now they've fixed a lot of the things that were wrong with the last two models. And it's a bummer because why didn't this happen a couple years ago and I would have been fine. I would have bought this camera. All right, so let's get into it. So the big news, the whopping news, the headliner news is probably that brand new sensor. That's not the big news for me, but for most people, that's a big deal. It's the 100 megapixel medium format sensor. And yeah, that's impressive. And yeah, there's great details. But like I said, honestly, like the 50 megapixel medium format sensor was kind of overkill for me. And I was using it at the high ends and I could even justify the cost, but I just didn't really need it. And in addition to that, you know, that 100 megapixel sensor comes with some problems. Like even when I upgraded to that 50 megapixel medium format sensor, I had to upgrade a whole bunch of other stuff. So I didn't have a powerful enough MacBook at the time. I had to buy like a $4,000 maxed out MacBook Pro. I had to get new memory cards, and I also had to get new hard drives as well. Now on that topic, something they did that's quite impressive is now they've got that built-in storage. I love this trend. I love that camera companies are doing this. The first time I had heard of it, I'm sure someone else did it before this, but the first time I heard of it was when Leica let me borrow the M11 before it came out, and it had that built-in 64 gig memory, and I thought, that's cool. Why don't they all have that? Like it's no brainer, right? I mean, memory cards crap out on you. Sometimes you forget them. Things go wrong. Just to have it, like amateur pro, that safety net, it's nice to have. Hasselblad said 64 gigs. Like seriously, they built in a 1 terabyte SSD drive inside the camera. You can also use a memory card as well. That's probably something that I would do if I use this camera. I would use the memory card as a backup and I'd record most of it to my camera or just to have things in two places. So that's impressive. 1 terabyte is impressive. It's also kind of needed with the size of those files, but still impressive. Okay, now the price, something that's obviously important to people, it comes in at about $8,200. Not so surprised there. That's about where I thought it would come in. That's a similar price to the original X1D camera, so that's about what I thought you can expect. Now, for those of you out there that are comparing, it does have a similar sensor, if not the same exact sensor as the Fuji medium format 100 megapixel camera, the equivalent, and you'll save a lot of money with that camera. And I'm not gonna really get into that debate, but I would just consider that like you're paying extra money there for the design and for that color science. So I know the Fuji comes with a lot of benefits as well, and it's always an argument. It's the same with the rangefinder thing, the Fuji and the Leica. So if you're like me and you care about aesthetic a little more and you don't mind paying a little bit more for it, then go with this. If you don't care, go with the Fuji. That's that debate. I'm not gonna get into that debate. Don't make that a debate in my comment section. Okay, the next big upgrade, probably the most important one to me, is their new autofocus system. Now, I haven't used it. I don't have any hands-on experience with it, but by all accounts, by most people that have been reviewing it, it's a nice upgrade. Now, that's not saying much because the last two cameras had horrible autofocus. That upgraded phase focus system seems to work well, so that's really nice. That's great news. Again, wish that was in the original one, but oh well. A couple other little features, and again, I'm not gonna go through everything. If you want a deep dive about all the statistics, all the features, just go to the Hasselblad website. Everything is right there. But a couple other features that stand out to me but aren't as important as the ones that I mentioned. It has the tilt-out screen. It's nice to have. It now has IBIS, so it has stabilization. That's nice if you like to shoot in low light. They've also replaced the top dial with a little tiny screen there so you can see what settings you have dialed in. That's a nice little added bonus. I should mention this about the Hasselblad system in general. Their app, usually apps with camera companies are terrible. I don't understand why those two can't get together, like app people and camera companies, but Hasselblad has done a great job with that. Their focus app is phenomenal. I use it on my iPad all the time. Like I don't want to touch the camera when I'm doing multiple exposures. Everything pops up quickly here. Everything works well in here. Well, pretty well, I should say. It's not like perfect, but it's better than almost any camera app for any other camera company that I've ever used. All right, so that's it for features. So now let's get into, should you buy it? Should you buy this camera? Should you drop $8,200 for this brand new Hasselblad X2D? How the hell should I know? I don't know. I don't know your budget. I don't know what you shoot. I don't know how much your clients care about this kind of stuff. I don't know how much your clients pay you. I have no idea. You need to make that decision for yourself. Okay, here's what I'll say. I would say for like just about every single amateur out there, or I can maybe even say every amateur out there, and Hasselblad will hate me for saying this because this is their market, the enthusiast with disposable income that wants the best of the best and really cares about design and look, and some people care about status as well. But I would say honestly, I don't think it's for you. I don't even think it's for like 99% of professionals. I just don't. It's overkill. But really, like, unless you're like zooming in like crazy amounts on your pictures and really looking at every single detail, or if you have a weird habit of printing your personal images on billboards, like if that's the case, then yes, get this camera. But I know it's targeted for you guys, but I just want to be genuine. I want to be honest. My honest opinion is like, first of all, yeah, who am I to say? But my honest opinion is like, it's really not for most people out there. And even the pros, like I said, I just can't see it being necessary. Like, I shoot billboards occasionally, not a ton, but the Sony 60 megapixel camera is fine. I've shot with 50 megapixel cameras and I've never had any complaints. So really, those are my thoughts on it. So I just can't with a good conscience recommend it to people. So who would it be for, would you say? It'd be good for someone like me, like maybe, but still, it's still even overkill for me. I would say it would be good for if you're a studio photographer working with like really high-end clients, you're doing billboards exclusively, or you do location shoots, again, and you're shooting with a giant team around you of creatives and the clients and ad agencies and things like that, and everyone's looking at a big screen, looking at the details close, and picking apart every single detail of the picture. Yeah, I would say it's for you. And if you have a client that you can sort of upsell because you have this camera to them, you can charge more because of this camera, then in that situation, yeah, it justifies the cost. But that's such a small percentage. Or maybe even like a landscape photographer that sells giant fine art prints and they sell them for giant prices. Then you could justify this camera. But other than that, I can't really see who really needs this camera. It's kind of overkill. We're getting into that point where like, it's just too much. So you might also say like, yeah, but you've got disposable income. You don't mind spending money on a camera. You care about design. You care about aesthetic. If that's the case, I would say then I would still guide you away from this camera. I would still say go with something like the Leica M11. It's still beautifully designed. It still has a beautiful aesthetic, and it's a great camera. It's going to produce awesome files, even for pros. So that's where I would guide you down that path. Or if you really can't stand manual focus and you don't mind something a little bit bigger, you want a similar feel and design. I've held this camera, I've used it a bit. Check out the Leica SL2, and they have a 50 megapixel sensor as well, which again is overkill for just about all of you out there. So lastly, is it for me? Would I buy this camera? Will I keep my X2D lenses and reinvest back in this camera and sell all my Sony, or will I keep some of the Sony and have like a specialized billboard kit? I'll never say never, but as of now, probably no. I just think it's too much. I think it would slow down my whole workflow process. And again, I don't want to have to buy two of all their lenses. You know, they did release some other nice lenses. I should say that as well. The new lens system looks okay. The last lenses were a little bit too big for my taste, but I'm coming from a Leica system, so I'm a little bit picky. But yeah, probably not right now. I don't see the need for it. I think it's overkill. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great camera. It produces beautiful files and looks beautiful in your hands and feels wonderful in your hands, but it's just not for me right now. I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. So is this camera for you? Are you gonna blatantly ignore me and disobey me and go out and buy this camera? If so, tell me why. If not, and you have a different reason why you wouldn't buy this camera, I'd love to hear all about it. Let's start a dialogue in the comments section. I'd love to talk about it, have a little debate there. Also, guys, before I go, I've got a couple new presets on my online store. I've got a brand new print store with frame prints available for shipping in the US and Canada, and I've also got a bunch of my online one-on-one classes, a whole variety of different packages on there. Check that out at justinmott.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to have a wonderful day.